But it was fascinating that this crime was pretty well invented or reinterred anyway, which is the crime, the so-called spiritual pressure, which was used, as I understand it, was a law invented to punish Irish priests who stirred up the Irish peasantry against the Anglo-Irish English landlords in the 19th century. And this barrister Morey has brought to bear again this ancient crime, which was used as a method of exerting political control by the English upper classes in Ireland, and played a role in creating the Troubles much later on. Now, it does make me uneasy. And I'd also make a comparison between the coverage of what happened in Tower Hamlets. I'm not saying that Mr. Luther Rachman was innocent, by the way. I just don't know enough about it. I'm sure I tend to think he probably was guilty of some of the things he was accused of. But let's compare that to the ongoing Channel 4 investigation into the Conservative Party's overspending in numerous by-elections, and including then in the general election itself. I mean, if Channel 4, half of what Channel 4 is alleging, and nobody's sued it, is true, we looks like the Conservative Party may actually have bought the last general election. Yet I've seen nothing about that, or virtually nothing, in any of the newspapers, including some of the newspapers which spent devoted endless stories to Luther Rachman in Tower Hamlets. You know, far more endless attempts to damage or to write about Luther Rachman, and there's no interest at all in Tory corruption or Tory law breaking or in Tory overspending. Yeah. And I think that is a very serious double standard.
It does beg a question. And that leads me to the next point I wanted to come to, which is something you said, that if Goldsmith's campaign succeeds, it tells every single British Muslim that there is no role for them anywhere in the British democratic system. You have described his campaign as the most repulsive you've ever seen in your lengthy career as a journalist, comparing it to the infamous Bermondsey by-election of 1983, when the Labour candidate Peter Tatchell was targeted on account of his homosexuality, or the Smethwick campaign of 1964, where the Tory slogan was, "If you want a nigger for a neighbour, vote Labour." You said it was a moment of abiding shame for the Tory party. Are we witnessing a repeat of the Smethwick syndrome? And what do you see as the implications of this disconnect with the Muslim community?
Well, I think it is. I did say it's a very nasty campaign, and it had the sectarian implications of those earlier campaigns. One about race, one homosexuality. This one really about religion, targeting a religious group of the population. Now, I think the implications are very serious indeed. They're serious because we are a tolerant country. Everybody has to be British and be given the fully British. You know, you can engage politically, you engage socially, you engage economically, and all sort of minorities, everybody in this, we're all in it together. I really profoundly believe that. But if this campaign by the Conservatives is targeting Sadiq Khan really on the basis of who he is and where he comes from, and what he believes and who his friends are, that's really ugly. It's saying to Muslims, you're not welcome here. Now, that's really bad. That's why I made those comparisons.
Now, that sort of an associated issue has been this recent media frenzy over what's been described by some sections of the media, or even senior members of the Labour Party, as an anti-Semitism crisis in the Labour Party itself. We've seen high profiles such as MP Naz Shah, former Labour London Mayor Ken Livingstone, a former Blackburn Mayor, a Nottingham and Burnley councillor, all suspended over comments on social media in the last few days. In fact, only this morning I read an article in the Telegraph suggesting that the Labour Party has secretly suspended 50 of its members over anti-Semitic and racist comments. As officials, it said, struggled to cope with the crisis engulfing the party. Now, I know that you have described Jeremy Corbyn as a real breath of fresh air, saying, and I really admire him, and that you regard him as a profoundly British figure. These are your words. Is all this anti-Semitism row, in your opinion, a part of an attempted coup attempt to oust Mr Corbyn, or does Corbyn's Labour Party actually have an anti-Semitic problem?
I think that there is a problem with anti-Semitism in the Labour Party, and that's very interesting because it's quite new. If you go back in time, really the Labour Party was much better on these divisive issues. I think it is to do with the Middle East, and I think that some of Mr Corbyn, not Mr Corbyn himself, I don't think that he is anti-Semitic, but some of his supporters, too many of his supporters, feel very, very anguished by what they see happening in the Middle East, but muddle up their criticism of Israel with criticism of Jews. And some of the things which have been said are terrible. I mean, anti-Semitism is a terrible thing. It's one of the vilest things, because we can see what happened in history. It led to the pogroms and eventually to the Holocaust and to the targeting of people on the basis of race and anti-Semitism. Now, I think that it has come back into Labour, and it is essential that Mr Corbyn deals with that problem.
And you think it was right for a prompt reaction of this mass expulsion, rather suspension, of many members of its party?
Yeah, I do. I think he reacted. Some people have criticised him, but I think he's reacted reasonably. We've said Ken Livingstone, who is, I think I'm right in saying, a personal friend and ally, to calm down on him like a ton of bricks very fast. Yes, I felt that was right and admirable.
Peter Oborne, sadly that's as much time as we've got today. It's been a real pleasure having you, as always, on the channel. Thank you very much for joining me on Islam Channel.
Thank you very much indeed, Carl. I much appreciate it.